just want to let you guys know this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you need to talk to a licensed therapist, be sure to visit BetterHelp. And when you sign up, visit betterhelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice. Be sure to do that, guys. Your well-being is worth it. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Well, guys, the NFL draft has come and gone for the Indianapolis Colts, and they still have some needs. They still have some things they need to do to their roster until week one does come. So we want to talk about some of those needs today. And we have 4 needs we still got to talk about from a competition standpoint and also a depth standpoint for this roster that we've really identified here, Derek. Why don't you go ahead and talk about the first need that we have here?
Yeah, well, the obvious answer to this one is the interior of the offensive line, particularly looking at guard in particular. You know, we know at this moment in time, the likely scenario is that Matt Gonsalves is now going to be your right guard, most likely, because Braden Smith is back. And the Colts did not address interior offensive line in the draft. So now that's the main conclusion that we can draw from this. But as it currently stands now, when you're looking at that position, you know, if you have Quentin Nelson and Matt Gonsalves at guards, your backup guards are now going to be Danny Pinter and Dalton Tucker. Now, no offense to Dalton Tucker. We thought that Dalton Tucker might turn out to be a very good player based on how he was doing in the preseason. He was locking up quite a few people in the preseason. But he had a few times this last season where he was at right guard and he was not doing very well. So the Indianapolis Colts are definitely going to need to get that depth. I know Danny Pinter is a pretty solid player. I know he prefers to be center depth rather than that, but you have Wesley French there in case Tanner Bortolini ends up going in that regard. So you're not moving Tanner Bortolini. He's going to be your center of the future. And Braden Smith is not moving anywhere, at least as of this moment. So, and when you drafted Jalen Travis for the swing tackle position, so now you have that swing tackle depth, but now you need to really focus on that interior of the offensive line. You don't even really need to get much. You just need to have that one more guy that you felt somewhat confident that if Matt Gonsalves went down or Quentin Nelson went down for any reason, that you could have another person alongside Danny Pinter that can fulfill that need while Matt Gonsalves and them return.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't mind at all just some more quality depth in there of some sort. There are some free agents still available. I mean, even if there's a guy that you feel like can go in there and even compete for right guard for the first year, like if you sign him like a veteran, sign him for a 1-year deal, he's at least competing in there. I wouldn't mind that at all, to be honest with you, because, I mean, we all view Matt Gonsalves as a guy that either this year or moving forward is going to be a piece of some sort for your offensive line. Just where is the biggest question there? So, yeah, I definitely would not mind that if the Indianapolis Colts elected to go that route when it came to their right guard and just guard position in general for the depth standpoint. And then really from the offensive standpoint, that's about it, Derek. But we move to the defensive side of the ball. And I think the big one that we talk about as well that we expected the Colts to take was another defensive tackle of some sort. And we did not see the Colts do that. In fact, we saw them address edge, but not the interior of that defensive line. And the question remains, outside of DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, who else do you really have in there that you feel confident in? Is it Neville Gallimore? Do you feel like he can take a leap? Or is it a guy like Tim Smith, who you just drafted out of Alabama in the 6th round? Do you think he can do something? But regardless of that, I think it would be foolish to not address it in some way, in some capacity. especially from a run stopping standpoint. I mean, I feel like you have enough guys that are position flexible at end that could kick inside if need be on obvious pass downs. But the run stopping is my bigger concern here, Derek, because we even saw it last year. The last 2 years, in fact, the Indianapolis Colts, whenever, a guy, Grover or Buck, had to come off the field for any reason, it was an immediate downgrade. And not just like, okay, obviously it's going to be that with a backup. Like, it was a drastic drop in production. Like, you didn't even have competent play there. And the Colts, obviously they released Raekwon Davis. They didn't bring back Taven Bryan. So there was a question mark of who is going to be in there for that defensive tackle position. What are your thoughts there on that interior, that defensive line? I'm thinking more run stopping here in general. What are your thoughts on the Colts potentially adding somebody in there to continue to add depth there?
Well, I mean, I'll even take it a step further, Cody. Even when DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart were both available and there for this defense, even then it was still atrocious last year. Now, I don't think that necessarily has to do that much with Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. I think that a lot of times this last year, Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner were doing really good at shedding their blocks and nearly making plays. Just ultimately, the linebackers were not doing a good enough job of shedding blocks and getting to the right gaps. And I think that ultimately was a major concern for the Indianapolis Colts. But I mean, yeah, no doubt that you have to try to find somebody right now. And, that was a glaring notice last year because, again, DeForest Buckner, when he went down for 5 weeks, I mean, what happened to this team? Not only did you lose your best pass rusher, but you also just lost one of your core defensive linemen that can help you stop the run. So it didn't really do a lot of great things for you. And when you had to rely on Taven Bryan and Raekwon Davis, who didn't help you in either asset of this team last year, I mean, take PFF grades for it as you wish. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure Taven Bryan and Raekwon Davis both had 2 of the top 5 worst grades of any Colts players last year. So, I mean, it's been somewhat foolish in some ways that the Indianapolis Colts have not really done more to kind of improve the back end of this area. We kind of kept saying it was an issue, but right now they haven't done much of it right now. You certainly hope that Tim Smith will be the guy, but, to ask that much, Cody, of a 6th round draft pick to be the key difference maker and be that key role player behind 2 of the best run stopping defensive tackles in the league. I mean, that's just super hard to do, and it's too much of an ask. I mean, that's just hard to do, and I don't know. If Ballard and company have a lot of money left still to be able to spend in free agency, they're going to have to do something because, yeah, right now, you don't really have an answer behind Grove and Buck this year, and that's going to be a problem.
Yep. Moving on to another position for the Colts here, that would be the linebacker position. So I'll start by saying this, Derek. I know the Indianapolis Colts have come out and said the reason why we didn't address it earlier was, number one, it didn't fall that way. But number two, we do believe that we're going to play a lot more, nickel and dime packages. We're going to do a lot more than we've done in the past, where we're going to have more DBs on the field. We're going to have less linebackers. We're really only going to have 2 linebackers on the field for a majority of the time. And obviously, we pencil those 2 guys in as Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle. But I think when you look at it, Derek, if one of those guys goes down for any reason or is forced to miss time, especially, say, a Carlisle who excels in the coverage standpoint, who do you really have at linebacker outside of Seguna Luby at this point? You really don't have a ton of depth at linebacker. And I know you drafted, someone. I know you drafted that Wohler kid, Hunter Wohler, out of Wisconsin in the 7th round. But do you believe that he's a kid that could be a key backup immediately if need be? Like, are you willing to take that chance? Maybe the Colts are, but I know it's not like a big need because you do have your 2 starters. But from a depth standpoint, I would say it's a need of some sort.
Yeah, no doubt. again, we praised Ballard's ability to find linebackers late. But, I mean, Cody, for the linebackers that have come late in this team, it's taken them 2-3 years before they ever really became, very serviceable linebackers on the defense specifically. So it's not like these guys have, it's not like Ballard finds these 5th, 6th, 7th round linebackers and then, they end up coming straight into the defense and then are elite. It's not like that. It takes a while. So to expect Hunter Woolard to do this anything differently, that's just, I don't think that's possible. So, like you said, you really only have about 3 guys in particular that you trust. I like Alubi. I think Alubi is a very serviceable linebacker in certain situations if you needed him. I do believe that. But that's only one player. If somebody goes down, then who do you have? I mean, you don't really have any other thing to fix than that. I don't trust Cameron McGrone to do that. I don't trust Liam Anderson to do that. I don't, and I don't know why anybody would. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to sit there and say that you feel comfortable with the depth players that you have. And, it was the one position that Ballard neglected to fill any kind of reserve role at all in this entire thing. And, that's why we kept preaching about linebacker so early in day 2. Even people suggesting you should bypass Tyler Warren just to be able to get a linebacker in the first round. I didn't agree with that. I thought you should have gotten Tyler Warren if he was there. But, I mean, yeah, that goes to show you. I mean, the fans obviously are very concerned about the linebacker depth after this. I like Jalen Carlisle. I think Carlisle is going to be a good addition. I think he's going to make a big jump this year. But like I said, outside of those starters, outside of Alubi, you don't really have much for you right now. What's going on, everybody? Just wanted to say this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Guys, everyone wants to try to take care of their bodies and do the best that they can to help take care of themselves. But that also starts with your mind as well. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And of course, when you're doing potential therapy, in-person therapy can cost anywhere up to $100 to $250 per session, guys. That number can add up very quickly. But with BetterHelp, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you can pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, which can help you save on costs and time as well. Therapy should feel accessible, guys, not a luxury. You should be able to talk to someone the way you want to, when you want to. With online therapy, you can get quality care at a price that makes sense for you. Regardless, guys, if you have ever been in therapy or not, it is important to be able to get everyday stresses and sometimes even traumas that we experience off our chest and be able to talk to someone and go through those stresses. Your mental health is super important. We're all dealing with something. So take advantage and be able to get ahead of what might be bothering you. Remember, guys, your well-being is worth it, and it's now within reach. Visit BetterHelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice.
No, and there's still some linebackers available too, right? There's a few guys that you would, if you add them, I think they could definitely provide some quality depth in there. And then the final position I want to talk about as well, another position that actually has a good amount of good free agents still available out there, is that safety position. And obviously we know what the Colts did in free agency when they signed Cam Bynum. You still have Nick Cross on your roster, but we said this as another need, Derek. You don't have really a third safety that you feel supremely confident in at this point, right? What would you say? Like Rodney Thomas? I don't really know who else right now, to be honest with you. I mean, are you going to bet Daniel Scott's going to stay healthy for the first time in 3 years?
And then be able to actually be the safety that you want him to be?
Yeah, you haven't even seen him on the field. We have no idea what he's going to be. So I think that would be a situation, if you're the Colts, to go back and maybe you see a Julian Blackmon reunion here. He could be that third safety for you. There's still a number of guys out here that could make some sense for the Colts that, maybe you sign to a 1-year deal, but they can be that third safety. They can kind of fill that Rodney McLeod role, if you will, when you signed him initially, right? He was going to be that third safety. You sign a guy that's been in the league a little bit and can really help you from a depth standpoint. And if you need him to step in, he can be a solid player for you filling in. So I think that would make a ton of sense. I think safety is definitely a big need on this defense. You need to address. You really, really need to get a quality third safety in this room, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. And I like Daniel Scott. I really thought that it sucks to have seen him gone down so many times, especially during the OTAs and other things like that. The Colts organization kept saying like he's making great strides. He's been one of the hardest workers and he's really doing a lot of great things. But you're right. Like this is even different than a Juju Brent situation, Cody, where we say we're not giving any benefit of the doubt to Juju Brents at all, even though we saw Juju Brents for 7 games his rookie season do some great things against teams, but we saw him go down twice in a span of 2 years and miss more than double the amount of games in which he played, and we're not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt of anything. And sure, are we going to say the same thing about Daniel Scott, who hasn't even made it into training camp either time before getting injured and, just out for the remainder of the seasons. Obviously, he's not doing it on purpose. Obviously, we have to be a little bit sympathetic to that, but you can't trust that right now. You have to try to find somebody that's actually going to be readily available. And you're right, with Nick Cross and Cam Bynum there, Daniel Scott gets injured every single year so far when he's been drafted. Rodney Thomas had a phenomenal rookie year, and then ever since then has just gone further and further down the plateau. So who do you trust? You don't trust anybody in this group right now. You only have starters. And so this really makes me kind of hope, Cody, that the Colts will say, honestly, when talking about Julian Blackmon here, I know he's not re-signed. I know he's probably still looking at other options, but I really hope that, the Indianapolis Colts, with this extra, money that they have laying around for the cap, that they can convince him, hey, listen, I know that you probably don't want a lesser role here, but we do need you. We do want you here. We feel like with Lou Anarumo's defense that you can play a very pivotal role in what we're trying to do here. I'm sure that the Indianapolis Colts have probably already talked with Julian about, what Lou Anarumo could do with him in the defense. I'm sure they've already had those discussions, but certainly we'll hope that will continue to keep going. And I certainly hope that they can convince him to come back for a few mil this year, because if not, then, I don't know what the answer is going to be for the Indianapolis Colts at safety for depth.
Yeah, it's got to be somebody you bring in that understands they're not going to start. That's just not going to be a reality. But the thing I love about Julian Blackmon, if you were to bring him in, again, I know it's a new defensive coordinator, but the thing I loved about Blackmon was he's played both positions. He's played both the free and strong position. So he has versatility there, which I think is definitely important. So if you have a player that's dealing with an injury, he can ideally, in theory, step in and play at a pretty high level. Whenever he's been healthy, that's been the biggest problem with Julian. He just hasn't been healthy consistently. But when he's been healthy, he's been a really good player. Even last year, I know the tackling was really bad for Julian Blackmon, but again, he was dealing with a very serious injury, and he played through it to his credit. So I would not be opposed to that at all. I love what Julian Blackmon's done for this team when he's been on the field. The problem was he just hasn't been available enough to warrant, him being a long-term piece here. So if he can stay healthy and be in that third kind of safety role a little bit more, where he's not on the field as much, I think that would make a ton of sense for the Indianapolis Colts, and a guy that you can move around and it'd just work a lot. But maybe Lou looks at another safety here in free agency and says, hey, we feel like this guy fits our defense a little bit better. There's still a number of good safeties out here, good veteran safeties out here, Derek. We obviously know the Quandre Diggs stuff from last year. Could that be a potential fit there? A couple other guys, Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons is still out there. there's just a few guys still that would make some sense for the Indianapolis Colts if they decided to go that route. So there are some options here at safety, and I do think the Colts need to do something there via the veteran route to just add a quality third guy in there that can, in theory, step in and play well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how they approach that because I know if your idea, if you're Chris Ballard, I know he's addressed a few needs and obviously has brought in some great starter pieces and a bunch of other things, but like if you're gonna try to convince some people here in the media or even people like us that cover this team that it's going to be a wise idea if you have no defensive tackle depth and no safety depth going into this year, then that's going to be a recipe for disaster. At some point or another, somebody's going to go down and it's going to end up getting really, really bad for us.
Yeah. Unless you feel like there's a corner on your team, because you got a lot of them, Derek, a ton of corners. Is there a guy the Colts view and say, hey, if we move him to safety, we think he could be a good third safety for us? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but Derek, I mean, realistically, when you look on your roster right now, you have Tavarius Ward, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, Samuel Womack. You obviously have Juju Brent still on your roster. You just drafted Wally. You just drafted him. And, you also signed Corey Ballantyne. So you have 7 corners right there on your roster. Is there a corner you feel like could play that third safety role if you want to go that route? I'm not sure if that's the right answer, but could that be a possibility as well? I don't know. The Colts will have to determine that. But yeah, guys, those are some needs here for the Colts that we feel like they need to address in some shape or form here before the season gets underway. But curious what your guys' thoughts would be on this. Let us know in the comments down below. Guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.